All right, this is for people that might have just bought a NC57, and this is your antenna connection in the back. Now, if you take this jumper off, you have two antenna terminals, but they're really both of them go to the same coil. So you would run your coax from one of these and the hot to the other one and go up to a dipole. If you're only using a single wire, uh, put this jumper on, ground this if you can, and then run your long wire. I just run a long wire off this. It works good enough. Now the serial number on the newer models is in the chassis. It's punched into the chassis right down in here. And when you look at I think the last two digits are the year it's made. Something like when you look at the serial number, you realize the date is actually in the serial number. There's a guy online that listed, so many digits to so many digits is 1948. So many digits to so many digits, 49. And then this model here is probably the last year they made them. Now, there are models that are hot chassis. They have no connections on the back. Now, this connection here is for the S meter. It's an accessory you can get. I've never seen one for sale on eBay, but you can. They have a schematic in the schematics to make your own S meter. You come out of here, you make a little box, go on top of the radio. All right. Now this one over here, people will say, "Oh, that one there, that's so you can run the radio on batteries." Yes, you could, if you like a radio that eats frickin' batteries. So anyway, so what is this for? Okay, this is an accessory jack. Say you wanted to put a Q multiplier in this radio. Back in those days, there were people that sold out of the back of the magazine Q multipliers, and you would undo this plug, you'd plug it into the back of this, and you have to go in and make one connection between ground and the hot of one of the IF cans. Right? Also, if you go look at the Selecto Jet, it appears on the NC125s, but there was also an external model that gets plugged into the accessories on this radio. All right. I just want to go over that because you get reading on the internet and people just make stuff up, and then I go looking at stuff and I just get angry, But I was just out walking around and there's guys doing the cable. Shouldn't even call it anymore. It's fiber optics in to buy the house, and it goes to a box, and then there's an adapter that changes it over to your regular old-fashioned cable. And I was talking to the guys, and he says they're only putting real fiber optics in the new developments. So the people around here in Lancaster are paying for internet they're not getting. I just want to tell you that, all right? And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is that, yes, I still DX certain stations, and you don't really need to DX. You have your cell phone, any station that in the world you want, you can get through your cell phone. You don't need a shortwave radio. You don't need an AM radio. But it's a hobby. In other words, you turn this thing on, and I'm on the computer on the other side. Behind me, behind this radio, going the other way, is or in front of, is a computer. And then when I go up and down the dial and I find a station, I use my DX390 to verify what frequency it's on. And I told you I did the whole thing on the Ghost station. But the reason I look for stations during the day that are very weak and far away, they drift only a tiny bit. That's so I can pick up a radio in my hand and then decide how good a sensitivity is. It's also good when I'm repairing a radio to know when I got there. Certain stations, the only way you could get them is if the radio's got a 1 microvolt front end. And you can also tell which radio has the best signal to noise ratio based on comparing them. Right? And that's what some guy just emailed me. He said that he can get the station. So I went on and I emailed him back. I said I went on, and the station's there. It's 680 kilohertz, and it's a Hispanic station. It's out of New Jersey. The transmitter's in New Jersey, but it services the Philly area, and it's kind of weak this morning, or at this morning, 1:30 p.m. But it's there. And it's there on my DX390 if I take the radio to a different room away from the computer with all the noise. But it is a hobby. And what I pick on, the only hobbies I really pick on, are the guys that bring old cars home and they have like 20 of them. They say they're never going to work on them. Those guys annoy me. Now, a guy that has just one old radio, one old car and works on it, and he gets it working, he restores it, that counts. That's a hobby. The people that bring stuff home, they talk big. You know, they're out in the middle of nowhere, they got a big backyard, and their parents don't pick on them. They keep bringing cars home and they never work on them because it's very expensive. I sort of do the same thing. I buy radios that don't work on eBay, recap them, repair them, and it's to stay busy. And I do like looking at them. Like this one here, you look at this. This case is not a rust bucket, but it's sort of twisted because of our what was I said FedEx the last time, and yeah, the guy dropped it at shoulder height down onto the front steps, and it said fragile on it. I'll use the words fragile from the movie Christmas Story. The father's saying it's fragile when it's really fragile. Yeah, and I'm aggravated, and some people would say you should have put a I should have reported it. No, you're gonna have a mental patient that's coming to my house, and he's gonna hold a grudge if he doesn't get fired. Now, what's really funny is my neighbor 2 doors over that died. That's his buddy, and I actually talked to that guy to tell him his friend was dead. I met them up the highway. They were in the FedEx truck. It hit me the other night. I'm like, wait a minute. I talked to that guy to tell him his friend George was dead. But that's the guy that dropped the radio. And he did it more than one radio to me. So I actually know the guy. I've actually talked to him. And but some people have like a real attitude. If someone puts fragile on it, they get insulted. And then they deliberately drop the radio. They're not getting even with the guy that wrote fragile or fragile on it. They're getting even with the poor sucker like myself. Now I'm noticing there's screws missing on the back of this radio. And that's because the screws got moved to another radio that the guy sold for more money. And I told you, and I always get bad marks on my, anytime I mention the dealers on eBay, I always get, the guy gives me thumbs down. It's one of them. They're feeling a little guilty. But that's what they do. They take all the best parts, put them on a unit, and sell it for more money. And then the next unit down, it's missing parts and it doesn't work. And that's what I basically end up with. This one's missing parts. It didn't work. And it was capacitors. And this one here had a bad capacitor in the IF can. And I could see underneath on the chassis, there were notes. And the guy had localized the problem as being in the IF can. And it didn't bother me. I opened that IF can up, you know, if I think it's in there, then I cut the lead of the capacitor, and I use that tester I showed you. Make sure the radio's not plugged in or hooked to any grounds or antennas. Push the button, light stays on. That cap's checked. That cap's leaky. Cut the other lead of the capacitor off. Take it out, put it across the tester. Press it. Light stays on, bad cap. As soon as you change the capacitor, the IF can will null out real sharp. When you're, I think this radio is 455, the IF cans. When you're turning those slugs, it's very sharp. And that's telling you the capacitor is good. And that's on the groups that tell you, well, as long as the null is sharp, the capacitor is good. That's not necessarily true. All right. And someone figured that out, that he had a null that wasn't that good compared to the other ones. And he had all notes underneath on the chassis. And he finally realized it's in the IF can, and he chickened out. I don't chicken out. I did those IF cans in the Hellcrafters SX42. That was a nightmare. Go look at those videos. But I just want to tell you what those plugs on the back are for. Now, this one here is for the S meter. There is an S meter available for this radio. You just plug it in, you put it on top of the radio, and then you could run this on batteries, but this is for accessories. It's for the you go look it up. You can actually find the advertisement for the select Big O Jet. It's 3 words and it's got dashes in between it. Selecto Jet. I'll tell you real quick. Selecto jet, when you're listening to code, you can regenerate the tone at the audio level. Now, there's a Q multiplier that goes with this radio you can also buy. You come out of the accessories and you bring in a shielded wire and you put it into one of the IF cans. I don't remember which one it is. And you basically make that IF can go into oscillation. And what that does, that makes the selectivity of the radio increase. Because as the IF goes into oscillation, it becomes more narrow, what the frequency it lets pass. So you can make it more narrow. You're doing a contest, you've got a bunch of code guys around you, and you can use the Q multiplier. The other way around it was they came out with a Selecto jet as an accessory for this. This is NC57. Also built in, the NC125 has the Selecto jet built in. And when I sold my NC125, I sold it to a guy we used to call Bouncing Bob. He had a vast collection of radios, and he stood over my radio, and that's the one I got for like $20 at tech school from a kid. His name was William Masker. Well, anyway, I bought the cap, the cap. I bought the radio from him, and I used it for a few years, and then I resold it for a lot more money than I bought it for. But Bob was standing over, and he didn't have an NC125 ever, and he always wanted to try a Selecto jet. And what it is you're copying code, and there might be 3 code guys next to each other. And what you do is each one of them is a slightly different tone. You then go into like a regenerative tone amplification circuit, and you can pull that guy, the one you want to copy, you can pull it out of the other 2. And you can also do that with a Q multiplier, but it's done a little bit differently. One, you're changing the bandwidth of the radio, and one, you're doing it by audio. And later on, they did have code amplifiers that have notch filters and everything on it. That was like an add-on unit. It hooked in. You put your speaker into it and had it in and an out. And I had one of them for a while. I was using it when I was doing the radio fax. And then I got into that, and I used that circuit in my fax machine to basically, you want to filter out all the noises but the tone that makes the facsimile picture. Go look at that. Someday I might hook the fax machine up and show you how that works. That may be another video at some point. But I have to run a wire. I have to use an R71A, one of my R71As. I have to find one of the frequencies that they're still sending radio fax. See, some of the ships still get weather fax photos left over from the old days. See, most ships now, they have basically satellite reception and stuff like that. But there's probably 1 or 2 stations sending old-fashioned fax pictures for other countries. I think that's it. All right, that's it.